First off, I'd just like to thank Mike for his condolences. It was a pretty tough week losing my grandfather. I think Mike and I must have similar grandfather situations. Like Mike, I did not know my mom's father. He died in the 60s when my mom was 15 years old. She was the oldest of 8 children, and he passed away of a heart attack, so I never knew him. My dad's father, the one that just passed away, he was like really the only grandfather I knew, so he had a really special place in my heart, especially considering the fact that I'm named after him. Him, and my dad, we share a name. We have different middle names. That's our tradition. We do different middle names, but we have the same first and last names. So that was just a very special relationship I had with him because of those two things, the name and also him really being my only grandfather. But I mean, he was a great man. He was 91 years old. Would have been 92 this April. It was kind of a shock because he wasn't sick before. My two grandmothers have been sick for years, and he was pretty healthy relatively for that age. And it was just very sudden. But I guess if you're gonna go, that's the best way to go, is not be all sick first and go kind of healthy. But I did want to kind of share some memories of my grandfather, or a special memory, and it's appropriate with this past week being Veterans Day, as Mike exemplified in his vlog this week, because both my grandfathers were veterans of World War II. My mom's father served in the Air Force. He was a tiny little guy. His parents came from Italy, which is kind of funny because that's who he fought against in the Air Force. Yeah, but he wasn't a pilot. He was one of those tiny guys that went to the side of the planes and shot the machine guns. So he was in the U.S. Air Force and did that. My other grandfather, my dad's father, that's where I get my height from. I'm 6'3". He was 6 foot. He's the only person on the other side of my family other than me that breaks 6 feet of height. But he got drafted into the Army, and for the longest time, the story was that he was about to go to Europe or to go into the war, but then the war ended and they didn't send him because he ran out of time and the war ended, so they just didn't get sent. That is false. I was doing a family history about a year ago. I was doing some research. I delved deeper into the annals of my family history than anyone had before. And that side of the family, my grandfather's side, it's all Polish. So it's really hard to trace with the weird, crazy last names that we have. A lot of times they got miswritten. A lot of times they just look like scribbles because whoever was transcribing them was just trying to guess what the name was and just scribbled something weird, because they're weird names, Can't really blame them. But I was actually able to trace us into our entry into America. All four Polish families that came together to create my grandfather and then me. I traced all four of their different points of entry into the U.S. in the 19th century. So that was kind of cool. And I did this history in honor of my grandfather's 90th birthday last year. I gave it to him, as part of his 90th year. And it got him to talking for the first time ever about his experience of World War II, of the war. Apparently, his story is nothing like what we all thought. He was drafted into the Army. My whole family being from Michigan, he was drafted in Michigan into the Army. Underwent basic training in Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Then he underwent further training in Fort Jackson, South Carolina, to be deployed over to Europe as part of Battery C of the 31st Infantry Division. They were training him on the big guns to shoot the big guns, and actually his unit was getting ready to be deployed as part of D-Day, as part of the Normandy invasion. So he was getting ready to go over there. Very suddenly, before they're getting ready to be deployed over to Europe to participate in the invasions, they pull him out. Apparently, he had scored a very, very high IQ on this IQ test they gave them, which is also kind of ironic because my grandfather was a lifelong blue-collar worker. Not trying to demean that kind of work because that's his legacy, and that's awesome. But just kind of funny. Like he never had any kind of white collar job other than his experience with the Army maybe. But they pulled him out, and they sent him to Maryland, this place called Fort Ritchie, and he was part of the Office of Strategic Services, which is a precursor to the CIA. It became the CIA after the war, and while he was there, he was training spies. He trained spies for the war, and Fort Ritchie is notable because this group called the Ritchie Boys, so like these Jews that fled to Europe during the war, they would train them in espionage and psychological warfare because they knew the language, they knew the customs. They wouldn't give themselves away like American trained spies. So those were a lot of the people that were trained there. So apparently my grandfather, he trained spies as part of the USS. Then right when the war ended, they quietly placed him back into his old division for to be discharged, so that there wouldn't be a paper trail. It was very secretive. They didn't want any record of him being a part of the OSS, and there is no paper trail to this day of that being the case. Partially because all the records from World War II burned in a fire in 1973. But yeah, I mean, just the coolest thing ever. It was really exciting, glad to find that out. And had I not done that history, we might not have ever known that. So I apologize that this week's slightly longer, but I think it was worth it. Till next time.